continue with the previous video. So that's how we will see the constructor chaining happen. So the process continue, start from you invoke from the child class, but the child class need to call parent class constructor function. The parent class construction will call their grandparents constructor function. So that's until the last constructor along with the inheritance hierarchy is called. Then that's constructor chain. The constructor chaining actually very good. We can see using this example. So this example, the same thing, I want you to download that and upload to your IDE to run. So you can see here, total we have one faculty class extend from the employee class. So that's why here you see we define a faculty class. Or we define a faculty class. So this faculty class have a faculty constructor. So then in the main method, they invoke the constructor function from faculty. But the faculty extended from employee, right? So right, employee extend from the person. See, one class defined, two class defined, then person, third class defined. So actually in this only file, you have 1, 2, 3, total 3 different classes. But here in the main method, we only create one object. So then I want you to see, make sure you run this program and to understand why this result happened. Okay, so then you will see here, you see that's what earlier we say, child class object invoke. But child object need to call what? Parent object. So they only call the default constructor first. So when they call the default employee constructor function, so then you see the default constructor employee function actually call their this. This what? Because they have another constructor function for employee. You can pass the string. So that's why they invoke from here is default employee. But default employee constructor function call the parameter employee constructor function. So then they print this information. But before they call this, right, because employee also have the parent class called person. So here, before this constructor function happened, before the line 18, between line 17 and 18, they call the parent constructor function. And also they only can call the default constructor function. So that's why they print out 1, because this one being called first. 2, okay. Then you see 3. So then at the end, your 4 display. So that's the constructor chaining. Okay, make sure you run the program in your IDE to see if you have any question. And also the same thing, like I said, I won't go over page by page from the handout, but you have to. From the lecture file, sometimes have peer talk. I know now you may not have the peer talk, but you need to try to answer your question yourself. Then if you have question, we can go over during the Zoom meeting or the discussion. So then you see here some more information about super keyword constructor chain. I also give you some peer talk. So then you guys need to think about those peer talk questions. And also sometimes if you don't know how to answer the discussion post, you can just answer those questions I gave you in the post in the discussion on Canvas. Continue in this video, we will talk about what is overreading methods. The overreading method actually is happening in the inheritance relationship. Because sometimes in the superclass, we have a method defined. For example, if we have the toString method in the geometric object. But after we inherited in the circle class, the circle class may be in the toString method, they want to display more information. So we see here, that's the toString method in the geometric object. So then we display the date and the color and the field information. So after the circle class inherited from the geometric object, this toString method actually being inherited. But remember here for the circle class, we want to display more information. That's including the radius. So here, that's why before we only show you we have the print circle method. But like we say, toString method usually is what the object information we need to using the toString method. So that's why here, if we want, we can define the toString method. Specific is for our circle class. Remember, toString method, the return type is string. So that's for here. Actually, the toString method we need to create is specific for the circle class. So this kind of method, we call that the overriding method. So that's when we have a same method name. We want to be more specific for our child class. So those methods, we will rewrite that in the definition in the child class. So we call that the overriding method. So to override a method, the method must be defined in the subclass because we inherited from the superclass using the same signature and the same return type. So the signature means the function name and parameter list. So you see in the superclass, we redefine this method, but they will have the same signature and the return type as our superclass. So that's we see here in the circle, right? So that's why the toString method is override from the parent class in the geometric object. So most of the time, if you are intended to write an override method, it's better you add this override keyword before your method implementation. Because from here, we can avoid the mistake. Because remember, override method, we need to have the same return type and the same signature in the superclass. So if you add this override keyword before your implementation, compiler will check that for you. So that's why you can see here. So this is why you can see here when we override this toString method. So what we will do is we will have the override keyword. So then, because we want to display the circle information, so that's why we need to add the radius of circle for the radius information. And also remember before in our superclass, our toString method, we did display the date and the color information. So now in order to distinguish the toString method we are invoke, it came from superclass or came from our current class. So that's why you can see here, I can rewrite my toString method become super toString. So then we will call the superclass toString method. Then I add more specific information for the radius. So now if you make this change in your circle.java file from our module 6, then now if we write or if we call the test circle rectangle earlier, our test driver again, you see we create a circle we call toString, right? But before we don't have the circle for the toString method. So that's why this toString method will call from superclass. But now after we add the override toString method in the circle class, so now if you run the program again, then you will see here the circle information will be added. See, before we only have color information and the field. So then now the radius information will be added. So that's the example about the override method. It's about the overreading method. Sometimes overreading method will be confused with the overloading method. So that's why here I want to show you the comparison. Overreading method actually came from the inheritance. So the overreading method means you provide a new implementation for a method in the subclass. You see, since we say that subclass, they are happen through the inheritance only. So in order to override a method, you need to make sure the method keep the same return type and the signature. And before we talk about overloading, right? So overloading actually is not came from the inheritance relationship. Your overloading actually just within your current class. If you implement multiple member method in your current class, they have the same name, but with different signature. So that's make the overloading method. So that's why you need to see the difference about the definition for overreading and overloading. So the overloading method, because sometimes you will including the inheritance. So they may be happen within the same class, or overloading can inheritance in the subclass. So we see this example. So this example is very important, you need to check. So I have A, B, C, D for answer for you. And also you can run the program we put in the test class. So you can see here I have a test class. Then I create class B. And we have class A. Class B is the base class, is the parent class. So we have the P method with the double parameter list. So then A extended from B. So now you see here, if I have the P double, then we implement in the subclass. So now when I create a subclass object in the main function, what is your result? Okay, so I want you to think about that. Then write down your answer. So then this one thing is this example actually is overreading method. But then we see again, this similar example, we still doing the B and A. I still have the B, have the P, double I parameter. I still have A extend from B. But now when you see here, I implement another P method in the class A. But my parameter list is what? Right, it's int. So they have the same method name, but different parameter list. So that's why A here, the P method parameter is integer, is the overloaded method. So then if we do the same thing for the P10 and the P10.0, what is the result? So I want you to think about that. Of course, let me give you the answer now, then you can compare. So for this example on the left, because we only have double override method, so when we invoke from A, they all print from here. So they only display 10 and the 10.0. But one thing is also depends on how you will pass the value, right? So then maybe you will display the first one only 10, then the second one will be 10.0. But anyway, they only call from this method. Then we see the second one. The second one actually is overloading method. So that's why when you have the 10, we know, oh, that's the integer. So they will call this one, they display 10. Then if they have the 10.0, that's double number. Then since you didn't overwrite, that's in A, right? So then I will go back to find my parent class, I find the P. I have the double parameter list. So that's why the second one, they will display 20.0. So think about that to see if that makes sense or not. So also I have the explanation here. So then we don't have the time for finish this table, but one thing is right, I want you to think about this table, does that make sense for compare over reading method.